Hey guys, Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. We want to thank you so much for all the support you've given us here on the network. And if you want to see what we're up to outside of the station, please follow us all over social media. I'm on Twitter at MikeMmedia and on Instagram at Mike Mercado Media. You can follow the good brother Alex Mercado on Twitter at Mercado21Alex and on Instagram at Mercado2121. The lovely Nicole Mancha is on all social media platforms at Typing When Tipsy. You can follow the network on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves. Our pop culture show, The Good Brothers, on Twitter at Good Brothers Pod. Our true crime shows on Instagram at Murder, Mysteries, and More. And of course, like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all our videos on YouTube.com/Mike Mercado 2333 or by searching Mercado Airwaves Network. We play video games on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mercado Airwaves Network. And of course, you can support our network by finding a tier just for you, whether you want early access, you want to be part of polls, you want to win contest prizes, by visiting us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. And we really appreciate it wherever you get your favorite podcast. So like, rate, review, and share us. And please spread the word. For the good brother, Alex Mercado, for the lovely Nicole Mancha, I'm Mike Mercado. Thank you so much for all the support you've given us here on the network. Welcome in, everybody, to the best damn podcast in the universe, in the multiverse, in the Spider-Verse, in the Speed Force. You're joining us here on the Quarantine Files on the Good Brothers here on the Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, joined by the one, the only, the good brother himself, Alex Mercado. What's going on, good brother?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Everything is everything, my friend. And on this episode of the Quarantine Files, we hope to bring more joy to the people who are stuck at home, going through some hardship. We've had a lot of fun making this list, and today's episode is no exception. Good brother, how have you been feeling about, all things being equal, doing some of these lists and having a little bit of fun here on the Good Brothers?
I think it was the right choice for us to pick more animated and 30-minute sitcoms, more comedies for fun to start off. And we're going to start getting into more serious movies and serious dramas on TV. But especially for the way things are going now, it was definitely a good idea to start with that. And we started off fun, and we're going to definitely end fun to the more modern cartoon juggernaut being Cartoon Network.
Absolutely, good brother, and I'm super excited because I know you have some crazy, evil plans in that brain of yours for lists that we're going to have to do, that we're going to argue about, and that we're going to have to make sacrifices, because that's how I felt about this list. We had to leave out so many classics. Good brother, what is today's episode about on the Quarantine Files?
So we're going to tackle, so now Hanna-Barbera's made its name, but now it's going to kind of start lending its properties to Cartoon Network and to a couple other networks, but Cartoon Network being the dominant home for more of its modern produced creations. So we decided to take anything from 90s Cartoon Network on.
And that is a lot of classics, good brother. So without further ado, let's get right into it. And because we've been perfect, good brother, we'll keep things the way they are. At number 5, I'm going to start off with my number 5 pick, the Powerpuff Girls. See, this one's really fascinating to me because it was really ahead of its curve. It was obviously everybody's sugar spice and everything nice. Everybody knows Mojo Jojo. Like, it's a show that had a lot of endearing characters. It was ahead of its time of girl superhero, girl empowerment, which we haven't seen a lot of. And I think the Powerpuff Girls is one of these classics that really, if nothing else, time has been very nice to it. I don't think it will necessarily succeed in today's day and age because there's so many. But Ben 10 and Danny Phantom and all these other shows that had to deal with that kind of superpower teen all has thanks to the Powerpuff Girls. At number 5, that's why I have them there. What do you got, good brother? What are your thoughts at the very least?
It's actually funny because that is my number 5 also, and I completely agree. It was the first show that everyone could watch with a lot of, not the first maybe, but it definitely did it big with the female leads and it being okay for boys and girls. I think their rogue gallery was very fun, and that's why boys were easier can connect to some of these people, like the Rowdy Rough Boys or Mojo Jojo or the big cuddly one, like there was a lot in there for everyone, and it was a lot of fun. It's very classic, and I think we can look back and everyone enjoys it, not just girls.
And that's the real testament to a show like that, is how impactful it was, how ahead of the curve it was, and also it was very well written. It was very funny. Like, a lot of times we tend to forget that. We never add that because we just assume everybody knows that, but it was a really funny show as well.
Yeah, very good kid humor with just enough for adults to enjoy and watch. And another thing we don't talk about enough is it looked great, especially for a superhero show. Nonetheless, it looked like a real fun superhero show.
Absolutely, and that is why we have the Powerpuff Girls at number 5. At number 4, good brother, I have Samurai Jack, Samurai Jack, Samurai Jack. I love this show. This was a cool show.
This was a show that was on a kids cartoon network, but really could have been on HBO. Had it been on HBO, it would have been beloved the way Spawn is, critically speaking. But even saying all that, it was critically loved. It was something that the fans loved. The network didn't necessarily believe in it because it put it in really bad time slots. But this is a show that people try to keep coming back because the source material is so damn good. It really is one of those cool action shows that really kicked off its own genre. And of course, it being samurai, we don't see a lot of those type of old feudal Japan type of things. So I really, really loved Samurai Jack, and that's why I have it at number 4.
Yeah, I agree. Samurai Jack's great, and what's great about it, it was a very classic American animation into that, foreign style. And, beside Pokemon and all that stuff, which we adapted, this was kind of ours. And like you said, when they moved it to Adult Swim for the last season, it hit the records it needed to. It hit the critic it needed to. But like you said, back in the day, it was at the wrong time. It was kind of ahead of its time, honestly, for kids. And I think now we're starting to really appreciate and see its growth. It didn't make my list personally because the time it hit, and I never really got to enjoy it as a kid. But looking back now, it's really easy to appreciate how ahead that show really was.
But since I have Samurai Jack at number 4 and you don't, what is mystery number 4 for the Good Brother in Top Cartoon Network Originals?
My number 4 was Courage, and I know you have this a little higher, so it's not that I don't like Courage, but I think the reason it's not higher is it's one of those shows where the moments, the memes, and certain episodes really live on. But overall, I'm having trouble remembering a lot of its seasons and a lot of its episodes, which is no shade to it. It's just my top 3 is a little more memorable for me. But Courage is such a fun character. He's so he's kind of us living through it, like living through these fears, and he's very honest. And I love the grandparents, and everything about it looked amazing. It just, to me, is a lot more moments than the actual show.
Courage will be on my list in just a little bit, but, we could gush on it a little bit. I think you hit a lot of the major points about that show, at least all of the positives of it, and even some of the negatives. And I definitely think Courage is one of those shows, if nothing else, its animation style, its character design have almost made it timeless, where it's very friendly at any point for any generation. Even though they don't really bring it back, it does seem to be a show that can live on if they wanted to bring it back today.
Yeah, and he wasn't a silly lead nonetheless. Like, he was, like I said, he was us. Like, he was realistic. Like, when things were going weird or bad, he was the first thing to call it out. And that's what made the show so funny, is that he was so aware of what was going on. And he's a dog compared to the human characters.
Muriel. All right, yeah, Good Brother. That's a good one. So the Good Brother has Courage at number 4. At number 3, Good Brother, I have one that kind of, I think, surprised a few people. I have Ed, and Eddie. This is a show that, again, it's kind of the best of, like, the playgroundism of being friends, of always getting into little trouble, being schemers. It had all the different type of characters. You could relate to anybody. Everybody had their own Ed. It was a very carefree show, and it all was about the jawbreakers. And, like, there is something, it's a really innocent show. It was really funny. It wasn't trying to be this super serious, we're going to teach you all this stuff. It was like, no, you're going to have fun for half an hour. That's why I think Ed, and Eddie is such a fun show, and it's why it was so memeable. It has a lot of great memes over the last few years, which I think is very important for the generation that didn't get a chance to watch it. So I have at number 3, Ed, and Eddie.
To be honest, it didn't make my list. I don't love this show. I don't really even like the show. I thought it was very more gross humor and not a lot of fun characters. A couple background guys were good. I think when you said playground story, I think Recess was the best thing Disney's ever done, and that really hit that audience. That was the only Disney show I watched, and it's because I didn't like Ed and Eddie. And as I've grown, it still doesn't really hit for me. So for me, it's really at the bottom of the list, but I could see why you would like it.
And I think that's a great comparison. I actually really love Recess. I think I have more fun with Ed, and Eddie, but that is definitely a great correlation between the two shows. But that's why I have at number 3, Ed, and Eddie. Good Brother, what did you have at number 3?
Well, I have one that I know you're upset that you didn't have on your list, but I'll say it for the both of us, is Johnny Bravo. Now, Johnny Bravo is the worst person ever, but that's what makes him great. He's an Elvis knockoff, lives with his mom, has a little Girl Scout sidekick, has a little nerd sidekick. I just remember all his stupid movements and him getting thrown around, and he was just so much. It was my fun show. Like there was nothing serious about it. It was just seeing this huge, beefy of a guy, good looking, getting just thrown around by women, thrown around by the cops or kids, and just getting into fun situations.
Oh, mama. It was quotable. It had the Hanna-Barbera animation to it. It was funny. It was slapstick. The character, just because he was the main character, didn't mean he was always going to win. He was actually the dumbest character around there, and that is why Johnny Bravo, if for nothing else, is just such a wonderful character. I would argue, my biggest argument about the show is that the show really doesn't have memorable episodes except memorable character. And, like, you can almost make your own episode of Johnny Bravo opposed to actually watching it, and you probably have more fun because you could just think about all the scenarios in which he would get into and some of the trouble he would get into. I think that's the strength of Johnny Bravo, much more than the show itself. It's much more his charm, the charm in the writing, and also the charm of the entire world around him, not letting this quote-unquote good-looking, beefy, Elvis-looking guy get away with anything.
No, exactly. And I think that's what the fun of the show is, that he's this perfect guy and should have a perfect life. But like you said, he never wins in an episode. And I agree with you. You don't remember episodes. But to me, Johnny Bravo was just such a staple of our childhood with our mother and Elvis that it had to make the top 3 for me.
And I wouldn't argue that. And I wouldn't argue that he's one of the main mascots of the late 90s into the 2000s. So really good choice having Johnny Bravo as your number 3. So before we get to our top 2 each, good brother, why don't we do a quick rundown? At number 5, I had the Powerpuff Girls. The good brother also had the Powerpuff Girls. At number 4, I had Samurai Jack. The good brother had Courage, the Cowardly Dog. At number 3, I had Ed and Eddie. The good brother had Johnny Bravo. And at number 2, good brother, I'm coming in with Courage, the Cowardly Dog. Everything you said earlier, spot on. Also, it's one of the great modern day introduction to horror. It had such cool animation ahead of its time. It dabbled in a lot of different things. It took risks. It took chances. I really do appreciate what Courage did at its time. And it also respected its audience. It wasn't just like Ed and Eddie was very funny, slapstick, like gross humor. That wasn't Courage. Courage was a story. There were episodes that you could think of right now that stick in your brain. There are moments in that show that are not even Courage themselves. I love this show. I think Courage the Cowardly Dog is one of on the Mount Rushmore of Cartoon Network characters of the modern day. He is on that. He is their Porky Pig.
No, yeah, I completely agree. Like, especially when we think about mascots, which I think Cartoon Network is better known for than their actual content of shows in the 90s. He's definitely one of the top 4. He's definitely on the Mount Rushmore.
So good, brother. I came in with Courage the Cowardly Dog at number 2, which means you have a fresh face coming to the list. The one that also is going to make an appearance on my list. What did you have at number 2?
Probably overall the best 90s cartoon on Cartoon Network was Dexter's Lab. And Dexter's Lab speaks for itself. It's still memeable. It's still modern. Just everything about it was funny. Episodes are memorable. The characters are memorable. The little side quests they have in there, the mini cartoons they have in it with the superheroes or with the imaginary friends are great. There's really not a lot of negative to say about Dexter. It still holds up. It's a fun character brother-sister dynamic with the parents being oblivious to it all. Like I said, there's not a lot of bad to say.
I think that it's one of the most all-time classic shows, and I think it's a perfect opportunity to lead into the entire list, good brother, as we get to our last 2, our number 1s. Let's do a quick rundown. At number 5, we both had the Powerpuff Girls. At number 5, the good brother and I had the Powerpuff Girls. At number 4, I had Samurai Jack. The good brother had Courage, the Cowardly Dog. At number 3, Ed and Eddie made my list. The good brother had Johnny Bravo. At number 2, I had Courage the Cowardly Dog. The good brother had Dexter, which leads me to my number 1 pick and the all-time top Cartoon Network originals, Dexter's Laboratory. Smart, funny, about the family, about science, making kids want to learn, making learning seem kind of cool, wacky adventures, wholesome family. It wasn't what we got at that time. And also very unique looking. Had a little bit of the Hanna-Barbera, had a little bit of the new age animation on its way as well, but it never tried to be anything it wasn't. It never pretended to be anything it wasn't. It was always Dexter's Laboratory. It never tried to take inspiration or go with whatever trend it was. it knew the foundation of its show. And to me, the best episode of Dexter's Laboratory is the fishing episode. Because it kind of solidifies the entire series. Dee Dee, the parents, Dexter, his way to try to always get out of anything by using science. Kind of making it seem like brain is very, very much important. But you do need to have a little bit of brawn also. Kind of being very serious, but also enjoy life. Be a little silly. I think Dexter's Laboratory, without Dexter, we don't have the Fairly Odd Parents. We don't have Jimmy Neutron. We don't have any of these shows that would eventually lead to even more, eventually, Rick and Morty. And Dexter's Laboratory really is the DNA, the first strand of DNA, patient zero, if you will. And that's why I have it at number 1.
Yeah, I agree with you, where Dexter's Lab is the Rugrats of Cartoon Network, where it's always going to stand the test of time being the flagship show.
Well, good brother, if I had Dexter's Laboratory at number 1 and you had it at number 2, that means you have a show that has not been on the list. What do you have as the number 1 top Cartoon Network original cartoon?
So I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here because I really love this show. I think critically this is the best show on the list. Technically, I agree Dexter's the GOAT. But here, I picked Adventure Time, and I have 2 reasons. I have a personal reason, and then I have the critical reason. Personal reason is this show came out when I was in college, and I lived in a dorm. Let's go in Texas. I lived in a dorm with 4 other guys from each of us from a different state. So Texas, Colorado, California, Florida, and Illinois. So we all lived together, and it's weird your first year of college, especially when you're on a scholarship, because you don't know a lot of people, and we're cheering together, but we don't know much about each other. And we're all hippy-dippy children, peace and love, and we bond over Adventure Time because one of our friends had the DVD. We didn't have cable or anything, and we would watch those seasons, and I just have the fondest memories of getting into that show, being with my college brothers, and like that formed the bond. Like, I love those guys. I talk to those guys all the time. One is a parent, one's getting married. It's a bond that I hold dear in my heart, and that's where I personally picked the show. Critically now, this show it had story to it, and we don't have Rick and Morty without this because it may look like Futurama, but the content is very Adventure Time where they have long arcs, and it takes itself almost too seriously for a cartoon, which is what made it ahead of its time, which made it great. And it's hip-hop culture like crazy. You can't go anywhere without seeing it on the internet or in a store. Jake the dog is one of the best sidekicks ever, voiced by Bender. So that's another add-on. And it's just a show with a lot of heart and a lot of humor and a lot of thought goes into it. And you have to appreciate the amount of thought they put into a kid's show, quote unquote. And it hit that college audience. And I guess I was just 18 at the time. So it was a perfect tornado. And I love that show.
Adventure Time is what happens when you do have generations of things like SpongeBob and all these different shows that had a lot of goofy humor. And then some of these kids that watched that show grew up and went to college and got a little cynical, but also kept a lot of their innocence. And you get a show like Adventure Time, which is this grand scale of a thing, and then they'll spend 15 minutes rapping about pancakes. They'll do a 5-episode arc about this girl and a king, and, they actually are good people, and why did they get to the point that they're at right now? And then they'll do a fart joke. And it knows itself, and it does it properly. It's also very fan-friendly in this way. You cosplay as it. It's easy to merchandise. It's easy to flaunt that you're a fan of Adventure Time, and it's cool to be a fan of Adventure Time. And without it, we don't have amazing shows like Gravity Falls, which obviously it's all part of the same family at this point. We don't get those shows that really we didn't get as children because those creators didn't think of it as, this is an art form. They thought of it as, this is a way we could get video games, toys, and a movie. Adventure Time was never about that. Adventure Time was about Adventure Time. Was about telling this story and having fun with it. I think, while I may not have it on my list because it's definitely one of the ones that's not like the others, but it definitely holds its place if we're talking about importance of Cartoon Network.
Yeah, no, I mean, you said it perfect from an outsider, and if you can see that from the outside, imagine if you went on the journey, and I think you said it really good. Obviously, I agree that Dexter should be number 1, but I would say I'd put Adventure Time in number 2.
And with that in mind, good brother, we have done our top Cartoon Network originals. We'll start off at number 5. The good brother and I both had the Powerpuff Girls. At number 4, I had Samurai Jack. The good brother had Courage. At number 3, I had Ed, Edd and Eddy. The good brother had Johnny Bravo. At number 2, I had Courage the Cowardly Dog. The Good Brother had Dexter, and my number one show is Dexter's Laboratory. The Good Brother with the hit Adventure Time. Good Brother, I absolutely adore this list, and I cannot wait to hear what the fans have on their list. But why don't we go ahead and you want to put these bad boys in order really fast to see what we come up with?
Yeah, I'd say we do Dexter number 1. I would put Adventure Time 2, Courage at 3, Powerpuff Girls at 4, and then I would say Johnny Bravo, Samurai Jack.
Johnny Bravo, Samurai Jack, Ed, and Eddie.
Yes.
I agree. That's the list. I actually totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think our 3 are pretty solid at the top since we can really agree on, especially character-wise.
So if you could tell somebody right now to binge watch one of these, taking Adventure Time out of the equation because we know it's probably the most inducive for a binge watch out of the other ones, what would you say is the best show to binge watch right now?
Dexter.
I would say either Dexter or Samurai Jack. But yeah, I definitely think, if nothing else, so if you, after you finish Adventure Time, which is built for that, I think you go to Dexter and then try to make your way around some of these. But this is a really fun list for a lot of people who haven't watched these that will still find a lot of humor out of them.
Yeah, and these are all really, like, now with all the streaming services, it's really easy to get to all these, like, obviously more Nickelodeon on Netflix and Cartoon Network on Hulu, but it's a lot easier to obtain this stuff, and I think that's great, because now you can go back and watch, especially during these times.
Absolutely, Good Brother. But that'll do it for us. I think we've come up with another fun list, Good Brother. I cannot wait to see what else you have on the pipeline for us. So we could go through it one last quick time. At number 1, we both agree it's Dexter's Laboratory. At number 2, we have Adventure Time. At number 3, we have Courage the Cowardly Dog. At 4, we have the Powerpuff Girls. At 5, we have Johnny Bravo. At 6, we have Samurai Jackson. At 7, we have Ed, Ed, and Eddie.
Yeah, that sounds about right, honestly. And I'm trying to think of anyone we missed, like The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy was a good one. Cartoon Network went through that phase of a lot of just 2-3 year like series. They created the characters and they kind of moved on, like Cow and Chicken. So it's really hard for the longevity of it.
And that's what they did well, is they did a lot of stuff. What I did notice is a lot of things didn't last longer than we assume, you know? Like, they didn't go 7, 8, 9 seasons like a lot of Nickelodeon shows did. They hit, and they hit hard, and then they left. Other than, like, Adventure Time, a lot of these shows didn't go a really long time on Cartoon Network.
Yeah, and I think that's the pattern you see. And I think that hit for a certain amount of years, but then longevity-wise, it definitely changed up with, like, our modern 15-minute, even quicker episodes like Gumball, like Steven Universe, all that.
Absolutely. But Good Brother, I am here in the studio in Chicago for World Radio News Web Radio. I appreciate you jumping on. You just got through with the kids. How are the kids doing during these quarantine times? I know coaching's a little interesting doing through the technology way.
The kids are great. Coaching's different. But at the end of the day, we just, at least we can see each other. And it could be worse, and you got to count your blessings.
Great words, Good Brother. Great words. And that'll do it for us, my friends, on this edition of the Quarantine Files on the Good Brothers here on the Mercado Airwaves Network. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the content we're putting out. We're trying to keep you all company with some entertaining stuff and maybe some ideas of how you could spend a couple hours with your family or friends or by yourself. We'll get through this together, and the Good Brother and I will do our best to entertain you as best we can. But until then, check us out wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Subscribe to us, like, rate, review, and share us. Check out past episodes anywhere you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media and on Instagram at Mike Mercado Media. The Good Brother is on Twitter at Mercado21Alex.
Nope, changed it.
And on Instagram at Mercado2121.
Also changed it.
Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. Play video games with us at twitch.tv/Mercado Airwaves Network. And give us a like on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. For the Good Brother himself, Alex Mercado.
Adios.
I'm Mike Mercado. We'll see you on the next episode of the Good Brothers Quarantine Files on the Mercado Airwaves
Network.
Hey guys, Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. We want to thank you so much for all the support you've given us here on the network. And if you want to see what we're up to outside of the station, please follow us all over social media. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media and on Instagram at Mike Mercado Media. You can follow the Good Brother Alex Mercado on Twitter at Mercado21Alex and on Instagram at Mercado2121. The lovely Nicole Mancha is on all social media platforms at Typing When Tipsy. You can follow the network on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves, our pop culture show, The Good Brothers, on Twitter at Good Brothers Pod, our true crime shows on Instagram at Murder Mysteries and more, and of course, like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all our videos on YouTube.com/Mike Mercado 2333 or by searching Mercado Airwaves Network. We play video games on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mercado Airwaves Network. And of course, you can support our network by finding a tier just for you, whether you want early access, you want to be part of polls, you want to win contest prizes, by visiting us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. And we really appreciate it wherever you get your favorite podcast. So like, rate, review, and share us. And please spread the word. For the good brother, Alex Mercado, for the lovely Nicole Mancha, I'm Mike Mercado. Thank you so much for